Okay, hello, welcome to part 2 of this DSAS series. So now we're going to take it from the beginning, and I'm going to show you how to generate those GeoJSON files that you need to input into that DSAS interface, because that interface doesn't read anything else. It doesn't read imagery, it doesn't read shape files. And so we're going to start from the beginning. How do you generate your shoreline data? How do you generate a baseline? Well, we're going to do that tonight. Okay, so you're going to be given imagery, and there's going to be a lot more than this, but these are just the 2 examples that we're going to be using today. This is the study site, the Jack and Laura Dangerman Preserve, and then these images have already been georeferenced. And so it's really critical, if you ever do this in the future, that you have georeferenced imagery before you do this, and that you know that it's well done, because it can be georeferenced but be off by 6 meters when you know you can tie it down better and get it down to like 2 meters. So anyways, moving forward, this video assumes that you have georeferenced imagery, which if you got it from me, you do. And I'll also provide you with the uncertainty values that you need to calculate the uncertainty for each image, and therefore the uncertainty with your shoreline calculations later on. So yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But this is an ArcGIS Pro. If you've never used this before, this is a pretty sleek interface. This is what's replacing ArcMap. And so we have 2 images here. We have one really high resolution UAS or the mosaic, and we have an image from the NAIP. I think it's the National Agricultural Office. And so that one's from 2010. And this one, the UAS data, is from 28 and 23. All right, so let's begin. So in order to do this, you need to make sure that your computer that you're working on is in the proper format. And so you need to make sure that it's in the English language, and your month, day, and year display are in MM-DD-YYYY. And so it appears to be, but in order to double check that, let's go ahead and search. Okay, so start, control panel, change state. Here it is. Okay, we're in the English language, and it was wrong, so I'm glad I looked at this. We want, like I said, MM-DD-YYYY. Okay, apply. Alrighty, so now that we've got that done, now we're ready to generate our shorelines and our baseline. And so the rule of thumb here is that all your data needs to be in the same geodatabase or folder. If this is where the data is stored. Same thing when you go to import into that DSAS interface. All your data is in meters, and you're in a projected coordinate system. And so to check all that, you go to your map and right click. We're in meters, which checks one of those boxes. Our coordinate system, we're actually going to change it to be, and this is all project dependent, but for our purposes, we're going to change it to be UTM zone 11 north, but not 90 degree. We're looking for WGS 1984. Here we are. I'm going to favorite that so I don't have to search for it again. Okay. So that's good. All right. And then I'm going to put all the data in a folder. So here, when you generate a project in ArcGIS Pro, it automatically generates you a project folder and a geodatabase associated with that project. And so we're going to put all of our layers in that. And we're going to do that by right-clicking on the geodatabase, new feature class. Right now, we're going to create the baseline first. So I'm just going to name that practice, change that to line. There's no elevation data associated with this, so uncheck that. Okay, now here is where you need to have those attributes exactly matched to what the DSAS user guide recommends. And I have these spelled out in my notes document. So I'm literally just copying it from the table of the baseline requirements. That would be table 5. And so it wants an object ID, a shape. It wants a shape length with the data type to be double. And it wants an ID with long integer. Now, if you don't know what data types are, I learned that in my intro JS class. It's just basically the size of the data at times that you're storing, as well as like some formatting specifications. You can look into that, but all you need to know is that it needs to match. All right, the others are optional, and so we're going to click next. Our coordinate system matches. Okay, and then finish up. So now you can see we have a new feature class, which is great. However, we don't see it on our map. Well, that's because we have to create it. And so here we go. You can see it popped up over here in our list of layers. And if you want to edit something, you can go to edit and then create and then click it. And so what you're going to do is, remember I said the baseline has to be parallel to the shore, but not too close. You don't want to overlap with your actual shorelines. So just have it a bit offshore. I prefer offshore baselines, even though there's an option for onshore, but I just like the way offshore looks better. So we're running parallel to the coast. All right, so that's just an example of what that one would look like. And so for our study site, we're actually going to be looking at 3 different beaches in the area. So we're going to be looking at North Beach, this beach that's right past the headland. So you can actually begin to start drawing that again. You're in that same line, double click to end creating. You can see it's been created as purple. And then we're going to look at this one over here as well. Okay, so you see that I have created 3 different baselines, but it's all under one layer, and that's actually really good. And we want it to be in one layer to be able to import into the DSAS interface easily. And so when you're all finished up creating your baseline, you just save it. And then I like to have my baseline be red. That one's kind of ugly, but you know what I mean? So that one's good. And so that's how you change your symbology. So it's really sticking out there. If you want to unselect something, you click clear. You can clearly see your baselines. They look good. And so I'm only going to show an example of how we're going to draw our base bluff and and the bluff top in just a really small segment of the North Beach. But the idea is to cover your entire study area. And so when you draw your baseline, you want to make sure that it covers everywhere that you want to measure. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you first draw it. So now to create a shoreline, let's go ahead and digitize. I called it a shoreline, and it is a shoreline layer, but something to note is we're not digitizing the shoreline in this video. We're digitizing the base bluff and the base top, but I'll refer to it as a shoreline, and we will eventually digitize shorelines, but not today. Okay. So how do you make a shoreline? Well, same way that you made your baseline, you go new feature class. We'll call this shoreline 2023 blue line, no elevation. Now here is asking for attributes again. These attributes are located in table 3 of the document, and I'm just literally copying them like word for word, spelling, everything. Because the DSAS software is particular in some instances. So this one wants object ID, shape length, the date, and uncertainty. And then it wants this one to be a double. It wants this one to be a text. And this one to be anything, any numeric field. So we're just going to pick short integer. Okay, coordinate system is good. And finishing up. So now we have shoreline 2023, and you'll make a layer that's that for a layer like that for each image year. And so you can probably go ahead and do that now if you wanted to. You don't have to. Input the same stuff. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Okay. So now that you've done that, you want to make sure your shorelines are each a different color. And I know that they were the same color in the original sample data, and they eventually will be. But if you ever want to look back at which shoreline is which and create figures and visuals, you can have them as different colors. It makes it pop more, it makes it stand out for papers, reports, and presentations and all that. Okay. So now we're ready to make the shorelines. And so what I'm going to do is calculate the uncertainty for these images because I have access to the georeferencing error, and I'm going to use a calculation that is from another USGS report that I've included in my notes document if you want to see it. But yeah, you don't have to worry about that for our work because I'll give that to you to plug directly into these tables, these attribute tables that I'll show you. So your main job is to digitize shorelines, or in this case, bluff top. and bluff toe. So this is an aerial image of the site. This is on top of bluffs. This dune system is on top of a 30-meter high bluff. And so what you're going to do is, this is the 2023 image, make sure you're on the correct image at all times when you're digitizing that year. So image year must match what your layer is you want to create, 2023. And I should have named that more appropriately. This should be like bluff top or something. The bluff top is going to be just this vegetation line. And so it's important that you're not zoomed out all the way out here. And it's also kind of important that you're not zoomed in like this close, because then it's going to take you forever. So you want like a happy medium where you can get the detail, but like, you know, not spend literally forever on it. So this is just an example of what I would do. Again, this is the bluff top, and we're just going along the vegetation line that is the top of the bluff. Could probably even zoom out a little bit more. Okay, you probably get the idea, but you do that for the entire stretch of where you make your baseline. And so for this project, the baseline needs to extend past this second river gully just a little, and then it'll go down to about the point and then cover this whole beach and that whole beach. Okay. So we're gonna end, double click to end. And then if you want to edit vertices, you can do that. There's all these options. If you need help, like you're like, oh my gosh, I messed up. It's not the end of the world. You don't got to start it over. You can adjust what you've done. And yeah. So don't do this. I think I overlapped it accidentally. That's an example of an error. But what you're going to want to do is have it be like pretty uniform and lined up with the feature. And no overlapping transects. No overlapping shorelines. Okay, so that's an example of the bluff top. Now, you would want to create a separate feature layer for the bluff toe. So another one of these labeled like bluff toe 2023. I'm not going to do that here for the sake of time of this tutorial, but I do want to show you where I would digitize that. So you know how earlier we did the baseline, we had it in a couple different segments. You can do the same with this. Let's say you were digitizing bluff top and you wanted to cross the headland, you can do that easily. And so I'm just continuing on this layer, like I said, but you would not do this. This would be a different feature. This would be the bluff toe. So we would need a different layer name. Okay. So luckily these have a decent slope. And so you literally just go along and you can kind of tell where it's shaded versus where it hits the beach. So this one's pretty easy to identify as well. Excuse me. Okay, hopefully you get the idea. But you just go along like that. There are some areas that are confusing. Like, let me end this one, for example. Like through here, there's literally no bluff toe. Just cross it like this. That's all you can do. You can also segment it out, whereas you don't even have to cross it like this. You can just double click, end here, and then restart your segment here. Technically, that would be more accurate. I'll leave it up to you. And when you make this curve for the bluff top, you know, pick a spot to end. I would probably pick here, pick it back up here, kind of thing. Alrighty. So that's just an example of those two features. Again, we're digitizing bluff top and digitizing bluff toe. So that was 2023. Now let's go to 2010. So turn off your 2023 image and then go to 2010. You want to make sure your 2010 shoreline layer is on. You're going to want to grab that from your edit window. I never save those other edits, so make sure you save them before you move on. Okay, so now you're ready to create based on your shoreline 2010. So same thing. So you can see our baseline offshore. I like to have the shoreline that you just digitized off so that you're not biased into thinking that it's going one way or another. You're looking directly at your image here only. And this one looks a bit easier to do. So here we're digitizing bluff top. All right, you get the idea. Going along up this bluff. And like I said, don't zoom in too far, but don't zoom in out too far either. There's kind of like this fine line of you don't want to spend all day getting every little nook and cranny, but you also need to realize that you do need to capture some detail. And so if you have questions, please ask. But I think you can kind of tell based on the example that I gave of what I would pretty much do. So here it's kind of crumbly. You know, you kind of want to capture that. Remember, we're following the vegetation line for the bluff top. This area is quite interesting. I'm not sure what's going on here. We can talk about that when you get to it. It looks like some of it's vegetated on the slope, which is difficult to discern. It looks like the top is here, though. You can see my cursor. Okay. So that's that for the top of the bluff. And then the toe of the bluff is a little bit harder to see, and you can probably imagine why. It's because it's shadowed by the image. And so you can see the bluff toe clearly here. It's an example of bluff toe. But when you get, okay, wait. Again, bluff toe is here. You can see that rock clearly. Sometimes bluff toe might be right up against the water. And that's what we want to see. We want to know, is there any beach in this area? That's kind of what we're measuring. Probably like that. And then where you can't see because of the shadows, just do your best. It appears that by looking at the shadowing, kind of goes like that. All right, so that was an example of bluff toe. Kind of see it better there. This is the bluff toe. All right, you get the idea. So yours wouldn't be in segments like I had. Mine are very segmented. Yours would be more so in a continuous line, bluff top all the way down, bluff toe all the way down, and then switch over to the south beach and then the other south beach. And that's the only segmentation you should see. Okay, so I realize this is kind of a long video. Now let's save those edits. And in order for them to go properly into the DSAS software, you need to make sure that your shorelines are merged. your baseline is an individual file, so that doesn't matter, but like all bluff tops will be merged.